Shortly after being weapons test at Eglin, they sent 4 of us with some special weapon systems, top secret in those days, to Ubon, Thailand, and that's where I flew until I was shot down. Most of my missions were not walleye missions. They were just general missions so I could get adapted to combat. In any event, it was one of those special missions where they actually shot down 2 out of the 4 of us because we came in low. It was January 68, January 18th, 68 when I was shot down. I knew it was hit, but I kept it going to get to the Gulf of Tonkin. And that was some, 60 miles away. It took me maybe 15 minutes to get to, before I could see the water, thinking I could make it and then eject. And it was pretty low. And before I could get there, the plane just went inverted. In the F4, when you punch out, there are 2. So when you pull, you eject, one seat goes before the other, so you don't hit each other. And so it's a pretty simple process, and thankfully, the McDonnell Douglas built that into the process. So when we both got out, it was pretty obvious that when we turned upside down, we were going to go out. So I was shot down at 3:30 in the afternoon, basically time over target. And by dusk, they tracked me down and captured me and stripped me naked and paraded me, for hours, it seemed like. And it was about 2 days later I finally made it to Hanoi. Other than cuts and bruises and, I was not injured. I didn't have any broken bones, so I was very fortunate. They put me in a place called the Plantation out of the old Walla prison. The first thing was the beatings and torture and trying to have you write sorts of confessions. And then I was placed solo for months and months. Honestly, it was just totally in despair. How did this happen to me? I had this whole thing going, on my way. And it took, I think it was 6 or 8 weeks before they take me to the bathhouse. And then all of a sudden, I hear the first American voice in weeks and months. And he says, "Hey, new guy, get on your knees, get down to the drain." And he was yelling to me through the bottom. But he gave me the code for the tap code. 5 rows, 5 columns, the C and the K are the same. So that's how we communicate. We did pass down a lot of policies. They were in place because they wanted to make sure that our conduct was in line with the military code of conduct for prisoners of war. When you're interrogation, when you're beaten, and how you, how you get through that, how you don't want to compromise yourself. These things gave you a little latitude of how you could skirt the issue somewhat and still live through it. Probably the most important thing is we all had to memorize, put them in alphabetical order, any POW that had ever been known and where they were, and so we passed that along. If you're released early, I think that's pretty solid evidence that you haven't honored the code of conduct. But there was one fella who was 19 years old. He was a seaman. 19. He wasn't shot down. He fell off a destroyer in the Gulf of Tonkin. So Doug Hegdahl was told 3 times, and he refused to take early release. That guy had been rounding up all the names, 350 at that time, phone numbers, wives' names, kids' names. He refused to go until he got all the names and numbers. They moved me out of a place called the Plantation along with others up into right on the China border. And believe it or not, the United States didn't even know we were there. And it was right after the peace agreements were signed, they put us on trucks and brought us back, and I said, "What's going on?" We didn't know the war ended. a week or so later, they put us on trucks and took us to the airport on a bus. So anyway, we get out to this tarmac at the airport, Jalom, and the bus turns the corner and I see this airplane. One's circling to land, one's on the ground. And as soon as it turned the corner, got off the bus, somebody grabs my arm in a Air Force uniform. Get on. They didn't stop. Just landed, didn't stop, put me on, walk on. The next thing I'm reading a magazine, a newspaper, take off. And 3 hours later, I'm in the Philippines at the hospital. So it was an interesting day.